All right, everybody, welcome to SoBo Radio. We're bringing you booze, reviews, and more. I'm Mike,
This is James.
and today we had the pleasure, actually, a couple days ago, we had the pleasure to sit down with Merican Mule, talk about what they're doing over there with canned cocktails and the Moscow Mule, and we hope you enjoy this episode. James, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Dean is a really intelligent guy. We sat down. He's the founder of the company. Just a lot of insight into how he got started, the things that made him passionate about the product and what got him started. It was a really nice conversation. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited to try it when we get our hands on it.
For sure. It's going to be a good taste test, and I'm excited as well. So everybody, I hope you enjoy this. As always, hydrate responsibly and drink local. All right. So Dean, give us a little background, why you started, how you started, what made you get into the canned mules. I'm digging it. And the Merican Mule. Tell us about the brand a little bit.
Yeah, so like Merican Mule, the name Merican Mule is the journey pretty much. It's actually, we the name kind of came about because we truly we're a handful of entrepreneurs that had a good idea and kind of pursued it first as a side hustle, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. Put some of our own money into it, and got as far as we could, and then finally, eventually as we expanded, needed some to do a bigger institutional investment with like a strategic partner. So early on, it was back in 2015 actually. I'd moved from New England. I'm from Connecticut. Moved across the country. I was working in technology, and I was just out at a bar with a couple of buddies, and I saw the copper mugs all being put out at the bar. And being from New England, California is always a little bit ahead of the trend. So I feel like there was that big resurgence of the mule, and now every bar has those mugs, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, it was still kind of foreign to me, and so we tried it, fell in love with the cocktail, as most people do have this affinity for it, and we started going around LA trying different mules. Went back to our place, said we should make one of these, and went to the store, and we were like, there's a million different ginger beers. Mm-hmm. We bought a few, we tried to make it. It's not like it's hard to make, but it's hard to make really well, especially when you're like comparing yourselves with like top cocktail bars in LA that are muddling fruit and just creating ginger syrup from scratch and all this. So at the same time, like I'm a big craft beer guy myself, and I was looking at what was kind of going on in the craft beer space, and always had this kind of thing in the back of my head, I want to be an entrepreneur and start something at some point. So when I realized, I just asked myself, I'm like, why hasn't anyone done a Moscow Mule in a can? So it's just always the same quality every time, easily drinkable, ready to go, and we could emulate, what the bars were doing, rather than like, kind of the lower end ginger beers at, any XYZ grocery store. So essentially, like, because of, the tax rate on spirits, if you use real spirits, it's a lot more expensive. But I think knowing a little bit about the craft beer industry and seeing that, some of the really good breweries could charge a premium because they were using high quality ingredients, we figured, we could probably, if we can make the mule taste just like a mule at super high quality, people are probably willing to pay for it. So, So went through about 70 iterations over 7 months, created, our initial, finally kind of settled on our initial Moscow Mule. Everything's from scratch. So the ginger beer isn't like a ginger beer or anything like that. It's all down to every single element. And then right at that same time, we saw Cutwater coming out with all these cocktails, and we said, rather than us trying to, we have a mule, great, but you need more than that, right, to build a true brand, right? So we decided to stay on the mule because of how popular it was, how much we loved the cocktail. And we said, maybe we can cut in different spirits and give each mule its own identity. And that's kind of how we started to build the brand, rather than create like a rum and cola, gin and tonic, every single cocktail that existed on the menu. And that became really the precipice of our brand. And we started selling out of the back of our car in California, self-distributing, got up to like 300-400 customers out there. And then finally got our first call from a big distributor out in Massachusetts. And so I moved back across the country to start to build out operations.
Back home.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is legitimately like a light bulb idea that happened in a bar when you moved. Like I find that so awesome, because I read the story on your website, and like in your mind, you're like, there's no way these guys just like saw just a grouping of mugs sitting in the bar. But like that's awesome, and like that's a genuine way, because you said you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you wanted to start a business, and it's like it just stumbled upon you with something
Yeah.
that you enjoy. I find that so interesting. It's really cool to see how that could come together.
I had no experience in the booze industry whatsoever, other than I like to drink it. But my background, I do have a background in finance before tech. And so I kind of put those two things together to be able to build a business plan and figure out how to do this. And the one thing you learn in the tech industry is disruption is like constant. And I looked at this idea, although, while the category is hot now, it was like nothing back in 2015 with these canned cocktails. So we were early in only because I had a strong belief that it would be a disruptor at some point to, the beer industry and the seltzers, obviously, like what's after the seltzers? Because yes, they're continuing to peak year over year over year, but what's next, right? And so we have a strong belief that this canned cocktail category is next, and I think you're starting to see that now. So
I would totally agree with you on that. Just by how much that craze has gone with the spiked seltzers, and now I couldn't agree more in terms of that's where I think it's going to go.
yeah.
Some questions that I have for you is, what do you think the toughest thing or the toughest obstacle was for the process coming to where you are now? And then the maybe least expected, easiest piece of the process that you thought was going to be harder going into it, but it really ended up not being what it was.
I would say I got a good answer for this one, actually. I would say getting started in the very beginning, it was communicating to the consumer like what the value prop was without actually being there, right? I mean, we did a lot of samplings where we could be there, but when someone walks into a liquor store and they see this product on the shelf, are they going to know it's a Moscow Mule? Are they going to know it's made with real spirits? Because, right, the price point's a little bit higher because it is spirit based, and that's why the quality of the product is superior. And so in the beginning, that was extremely difficult to overcome without hand selling it by doing samplings or events and things like that. It was very challenging to sell. So that's not only the customer, the end customer that's going into like a retail store or something like that, but also the distributors, right? Like if they couldn't understand the value prop, they wouldn't think the retailers would or the consumer would, then they're not going to give us a chance. And that's really the only way if you want to make a big brand and get scale and get it in front of as many people as you can, you need to build out a really robust distribution network, because in the alcohol industry, as you guys know, especially in spirits, you can't direct sell to the consumer at all. So that was probably the most challenging, and you had to hang in there and be patient. And we were so early to this category that patience was everything. And then I would say the unexpected would be when probably last year when COVID hit, and we kind of, obviously it really drove people to liquor stores because no one could go to bars and restaurants at that time. There was a lot of unexpected growth that happened, and I think it really boosted and gave a big tailwind to the category in general. And I think not only did we see just a huge increase in sales, obviously, and interest in our brand, but we started to get a lot of calls from big time wholesalers and referred into different wholesalers because they saw that growth happening. So in the beginning of the journey, it takes time. You have to have patience and you have to educate. And then I think as the category grows around you, over time, I was surprised to see how much interest and how fast it accelerated as the category grew. So
very cool. That's great. That's good to hear that COVID didn't really stop your progress and your tracks. You were able to kind of capitalize on the situation in terms of, no one was going to get those cocktails at the bar. So yeah, awesome. That is really cool to hear and good to hear.
A follow-up question I would have to that, going back to your initial challenges, was when did you have the confidence? Like, you said you don't come from a liquor background or really a background in this market whatsoever. When did you get the confidence that what you had was a legitimate product that people wanted? Because it was sampling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you said, okay, we really have something here?
I think out there's a big chain called Bevmo. I think a couple hundred locations at least in California, and then Total Wine and More obviously is a big national chain. And I think when we got Total Wine and More, and thinking back now where we were at, I mean, we were self-distributing, you know, we had a very small distribution agreement and warehouse agreement. And I think the fact of opening those two opportunities without having like a big time distributor, because typically you do need someone that's already in those systems. I mean, we were getting put into their MDM systems or their supplier management systems. So I think when we got those two, just from self-distributing, it gave a lot of confidence that we really had something. I think even before that, just sampling the product and seeing over and over and over the consistent reaction to the liquid and people loving it. I think we also just knew that we had something different. I think doing craft beer festivals, showing up and it's, you know, we're the outlier, you know, and I'm a huge craft beer fan. I love like when they get innovative and aggressive and differentiated in what they do. I love like the branding element and how they create an identity for their brand. But I think we were like the Moscow Mule in a can, right? The craft Moscow Mule in a can. And it was kind of like a, what the hell is this moment? And I think, yeah, that was that disruption I was talking about. So I think it was the kind of the accumulation of all those things. You know, when you know, success doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I started this back in July 2015, and so we're coming up on 6 years, which is crazy. It doesn't feel like that, but it's you build one brick at a time. Like it takes time, and you get these incremental little wins, and then they all start adding up, and you start to get this wave of momentum behind you. But you have to be passionate about it, and you have to, because if you're not passionate about it, then you're kind of doing something you don't want to do or you don't like, right? So I think just being passionate and having patience and just looking at the wins and learning from the losses, those are the most important things for sure.
Yeah.
So where do you want to take your company, and where do you want to, is there new markets you are thinking about getting into down the line, or is there, you're going to really focus just on the mules and making that it, and, or is there different paths you want to take, or is it, you know?
So we operate like a beer company. So like everything, or like a craft beer company in terms of how we go to market. We work with beer wholesalers, like the best of in their given geographies. You know, there's other brands that, because it's a spirit product and they want distribution in 50 states as fast as they can, they're going to go with these national wholesalers to get that scale as fast as they can. But that also requires a lot of resource. You spread out your resource everywhere. So, you know, for us, it's I'm an entrepreneur and I like to work with entrepreneurs. A lot of these bigger beer wholesalers are entrepreneurs themselves, and I've got a lot of respect for them. And usually, like when they see kind of where we started from and how far we've gotten, and similar to their journey, I think they really get behind that. So you know, for us, we started in New England. It's our home market, including Long Island, and so that creates a good nest for us. And then we've grown. Last year we went down and put a new region in the Southeast in Georgia and Tennessee. We also put one in the Midwest in Ohio, and then in the Mid-Atlantic in Maryland. So we're kind of filling in those pieces now across the Eastern Seaboard, and then starting to work our way from east to west. So we'll actually be launching a handful of new markets, including Kentucky, including South Carolina, including Michigan, and Idaho, actually, out on the West Coast. It's kind of a new market that's really interested in our brand. So, you know, it depends where we get interest and demand from. We like to focus in different regions. In terms of new products, we're, like I said, as a craft brand, we're always innovating. So last year you know, because canned cocktails are really popular in the summer months, and we see a big bell curve, obviously, of sales and interest and just consumers trying the product in those months, because you take it to the beach, take it on your boat, take it golfing, whatever the case may be. So last year we launched a couple seasonals, actually, just like craft breweries do. But so we had a pumpkin spice mule that we did in the fall. It did really well. And then we did a fire mule with hot ginger and cinnamon and bourbon, which was a really interesting, unique, outside of the box SKU too. So we're going to continue to do that stuff based on the seasons, and then we've got some stuff that's not quite ready for prime time yet, but that'll be interesting to our customer base, I think.
That's great. That's one thing I find with this industry in terms of craft beer and the cocktails is everybody wants to help each other. It's not don't get me wrong, there's people that sometimes are just, all right, I'm doing my thing, I gotta focus. But like when we go in and interview different brewers, they're all like, oh, you should go talk to this guy at this brewery and go here, go talk to them. Everybody's like always bouncing ideas off each other, or they're getting expertise in certain categories and how to brew differently. And it's a very cool industry like that, because the camaraderie, everybody wants to succeed. They want all the craft beer to be, they want all their consumers to be happy with what they're putting out. And it's just something it's refreshing to see that in an industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I've got a lot of friends that I've made over the years. Actually, the guy, Dave Holmes, one of the founders of the original Spike Seltzer that really launched that whole category. He's a really good friend of mine. He's on our board of directors too for our company.
That's great.
And our office is in Connecticut's right across the street from theirs, from their old Spike Seltzer office. They were since acquired by Anheuser-Busch, but and then other canned cocktail colleagues of mine, just as as you go through and you go to events and you see a lot of other entrepreneurs out there, it's really cool. And so I'm always helping others, and others are helping us too. And we're trying to build a category and this, together really collectively. That's different, but it doesn't go, same thing goes for beer and wine and everything. Honestly, there's really this cross-pollination across all these different types, in the industries.
Exactly.
Go
ahead, Albert, my bad.
What I really appreciate about your product, and it's something that I think sets you guys, apart from the others, is number one, the quality. Obviously, you guys are using the top ingredients, and obviously it has led to you guys having to use different price points. But I appreciate that you really have something for everybody. And what I don't always enjoy about, just like the hard seltzer market, for example, it's like if you're not into grapefruit, lime, or peach or something like that, like there's not really a connect for you in that market. But you have mules that you use tequila with, you have mules that have bourbon added into it, and there's a spirit and there's an element that can apply to anybody that drinks, that they can go to your company and find something they like. I really enjoy that about you guys. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, but if you are into peach or lime or grapefruit seltzers, you basically have a million options to try. But yeah, that's what we think. What we're doing is very different and very niche. But like we like that factor. It's Southern Mule, for example, is we could have called it a Kentucky Mule, but we went with Southern Mule and we made it a little bit different. It's more like an old fashioned rather than a straight bourbon and ginger beer. So it's got just a little bit of differentiation and uniqueness to it. And we're fearless in terms of flavor profiling. We're aggressive in terms of innovation. Like we will try something, we will put it out there. We'll let people sample it, try it, and then try to bring it live if we get really great reception with it. And so, that's kind of the DNA of our company,
Yeah,
sure. I love the branding you guys have. I love the can art. I love, you guys have a great website. Everything's really like tight, clean. It looks great. But the cans really, I that's something I get very excited about, is can art and all that. And going to the brewery sometimes, and when a brewery puts out a nice can and not just the label over cans they ordered or something like that, you're like, wow, that's top notch. And I think that's something that, when you see it, the mules on the shelf, you're like, oh man, I want that just for that's something that you have to have, because you got to sell once that customer sees it. And you guys do a great job at that.
Thank you. Yeah, we've gone through. We've actually gone through a handful of rebrands, like even in our journey, but I've always had the same designer who's like a personal friend of mine since day one, and it's really important. It's something that I can't even tell you how many countless hours of time is spent and how many opinions and all that stuff. Because I think, and going back to the seltzers, just to be frank, like I think some of them rush through the process and they just want to slap a name on a can, right? And it's like, just to get to, because it's more business and transactionally focused. I think with how we approach it, like a true craft brand, like we spend countless hours on product development and quality control to make sure we're putting out something that's top notch, that you get what you're paid for. And the can art, and we really think it's just like it pops off the shelf and it's really different than anything else out there. And the other thing is like how can we make sure the consumer knows and has that feel right when they're drinking it, and that what it looks like kind of matches what it tastes,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So yeah, we take it really seriously. You know, our that branding process takes, you know, at least 6 months every time we go through a new iteration, and you may see some new stuff come. You know, may see another refresh coming soon potentially. So
Awesome.
Cool. Very cool. Albie, got any more questions?
I would say I'm curious what your best seller has been, because I know, you know, the Moscow Mule, the original that you guys started with, obviously got you started, but have you seen an uptick in, once you started putting these different flavor profiles out, has one really separated itself from the others?
the Moscow does. We always say here Moscow is king because like it leads the pack for sure, but the other three are all neck and neck. There's very subtle differences. You go down south to like Georgia, Tennessee markets, the southern, you know, does a little bit better. Not much though. It's really balanced in terms of where the consumer interest is, because there's still plenty of consumers down there that want that Mexican Mule tequila and the tropical with rum, right? You know, you go up to New England, you see the Mexican Mule peak a little bit higher. You see the tropical Mule do a little better in the summer months and the winter months, which I think is a little expected. But again, we're talking very marginal differences. We're kind of blessed that I think it says a lot to like just how the time and effort and energy put into developing the liquid. And you know, we're not seeing one SKU falter where there's just no interest or limited interest. And you know, sometimes I wish it did, because then you could bring something, you know, phase that out, bring something else in. But the reality is, since they're all pretty much selling, you know, equally, you know, there's enough consumer demand for everything. So
That's great.
The one I really thought would be the one that separated itself was the Mexican Mule, and I'm happy to hear that that one is one that does well, because I feel like that is a market that people have tried to dive into, like a tequila-based canned cocktail, or whether like a margarita flavor type deal. And I've tried a number of them, and I just feel like they all fall short in some capacity. But the fact that you guys are able to put quality into that can and consistently deliver it, I think really separate it. It really corners a market for what you guys have in terms of these flavor profiles.
Yeah, it's an interesting SKU that reaches a lot of people too. You know, what we're working on now is like, you know, Mexican restaurants are a natural fit for that, right? So, you know, a lot of Mexican restaurants, even though the Mexican Mule has become a more popular cocktail over the years, just on menus, it's still, you know, a lot of places don't even know what it is. Right? Again, easy to make, hard to make well. So we kind of have a nice little option there for spots like that. But again, it's, you know, for the tequila drinker, I think it's a really unique option. Tequila has been a hot spirit just in general. I drink a lot of tequila sodas and margaritas that I whip up myself. So and then obviously you see a lot of new tequila brands coming to market with a lot of celebrities.
Tequila's blowing up.
Yeah.
I actually heard something about a blue agave shortage. Yeah, one of my buddies, actually it was our other partner Jake was telling me about it, and he said because there's so many tequila brands popping up now that the blue agaves, they said it's tough to get your hands on some.
Yeah.
They also use, but they recycle it too, the way they can use it afterwards. I guess they make stuff like straws and stuff out of it.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting article I read about it, but
yeah, tequila's got to obviously come from Mexico. It's got to be registered from the government. It takes a long time to go through that registration process. So it's an interesting opportunity, you know.
Yeah,
for sure. Dean, is there anything you want to add, or you want to shout out? Maybe your social media tags.
Yeah, we do. I always tell my team here, we're a digital alcohol company, so we also invest a lot of time on our social media and creating original content, building our brand again to create this cult following. And so at Merican Mule, just no A in the beginning, MERICAN MULE. On Instagram is our go-to, and Facebook. And then you could also visit us, mericanmule.com. If you're looking for to find the product store near you, we have a store locator on our website. You could just type in your zip code, city or state, and it'll give you a list of stores nearby to find the product. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been great today.
Today. Appreciate it very much. as always, everybody, drink local and hydrate responsibly. Dean, it was wonderful to have you on. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.